Hello, welcome to Golden Hawks podcast. My name is Lucas. We're joined here with Sergeant First Class Vargas from the United States Army National Guard.
Daniel Barona.
I'm Montasia Smith.
Harry Delgado.
Angel Marcano.
Patricia Oliva.
All right, so to get us started off, can you introduce yourself and what you do in the National Guard and how you got into it?
Sure. Well, right now I'm currently a recruiter. I'm a recruiter for the National Guard. I've been recruiting for about 6 years now. But what caught my interest was back in 1994. I was a 17-year-old kid in high school listening to a recruiter talk to me about future plans in the National Guard as far as my career. And I kind of was interested in what he offered as far as opened up a lot of doors for me, job opportunities or college opportunities. And I decided to make that decision to join. And since then, I've had so many doors open up for me, opportunities, whether it's work-related or meeting a lot of people in the military. And I've been doing it ever since, since 17. I'm now 47 years old, and I'm close to 30 years in the National Guard now.
Could you explain what exactly is the National Guard?
The National Guard, yes. The National Guard it's a state, program where we work for the governor in the National Guard. It's one of the first military branches ever started before the Army was established, Marines. It was first the National Guard. It was just called Minuteman Soldiers, 1636, where it started. And it was just regular people, providing security for their family. And from that point on, it's grown. And it's a reserve organization. It's part-time, where you serve the state of Florida 1 week in a month and 2 to 3 weeks in the summer.
And so how's the relationship between the National Guard and the Army? Like, what's that? Like, why is it called the Army National Guard?
Well, it's broken down into 3 components, right? You have the active duty Army, the full-time, and you have the Army Reserves, and then you have the Army National Guard. We all wear the same uniform. We're all under the same component, but the difference is we work for the state, the National Guard. We have a dual mission, right? So our primary mission is to work for the state of Florida for any type of natural disaster, if it's a hurricane, some type of riot, fires, or anything. We work for the governor. They'll activate the National Guard, and we're here for the state of Florida. But our second mission is just in case if the active duty needs some help, they're federal, they'll activate us into a federal, and then we'll support the active duty army.
So either or the state or the federal government can activate you, put you into active duty?
Correct, yes. So we have dual benefits. We have the state benefits, meaning if the state needs us, they'll activate us. And also, if the federal army needs us, we have federal benefits as well. They'll activate us, and then we'll either go overseas, help abroad, help them in whatever mission they need. So we have a dual mission.
While you're not activated by like the state or the federal, whatever, when you're the week, a month that you mentioned, and the 2 weeks in summer, what would you do during that time?
Well, when you join the National Guard, you'll join with a certain skill, a certain job. You get to, based on your ASVAB score, you get to join a certain job, and that's what you do on the weekend, depending on what it is, whether it's HR, human resource, whether it's a mechanic, fixing our vehicles, whether it's a cook, cooking meals, whether it's military intelligence, supply, ordering, logistics, equipment for the military. That's what you do for that weekend.
Well, what would you say to 17-year-olds that are in between joining and not joining?
I would tell them to not focus on right now, currently, but focus more on the future aspect. Where do I want to be 5 years from now? What's my goal? And figure out what it's going to take to get to that goal. Because a lot of times we have goals and we don't realize what it takes to get to there. What is going to take? What's that? What am I willing to do to get to that goal? So whatever you decide to do, try to come up with a plan and see which branch is going to help you reach that goal. Every branch is successful. We need all the military branches to work together, whether you're a Marine, Air Force, Navy, or Army, depending on which branch is going to get me to my goal, right? Everyone is different. Everyone offers something different. So that's what I will find out. First, find out where you want to be 10 years from now, 5 years from now, and see which branch fits that the most.
Now that Danny brought that up, would you say if you had a chance to go back in time, would you still join the National Guard, or would you make a different choice?
That's a good question. I love the military, but going back to what the National Guard offers me, both that I get to stay here in Florida. I'm a very family oriented person. I love to be with my family, cook, barbecue on the weekends with my family. So that gives me the opportunity to still be with here with my family, but still wear the uniform, be a part of something bigger than myself. So I love how the National Guard still gives me the aspect of service, being a part of serving my community, but also still close to my family, where I could still be with my parents, my brothers, raise my family here. I have two kids, so I like what the National Guard offers, so I'll definitely do it again.
You explained boot camp, that there's a boot camp. Is it the same as the Army, like 3 months, you do hard training, you go through all the same steps as the regular Army?
Correct. Basic training for everybody is 10 weeks long, and we all train together. Whether you decide to do Army Reserves, Army, the full-time active duty Army, or National Guard, we all train together at one location, and it's 10 weeks long. And then from there, National Guard soldiers usually go back to their state, reserves go back, and then active duty will go out to different, training bases or something like that.
How would you say that the Army, National Guard, or the military overall has affected like your mentality since you were 17 when you first joined?
I think what helped me the most that I've noticed is the mentorship that it gives me. As a 17-year-old kid, being around grown adults, professionals, people that have that same mindset, that same drive that I wanted. At 17-year-old, I really didn't know what I wanted, but I know I needed that mentorship. So it helped me as far as that guidance that I didn't realize I needed. And having that one next to me, kind of sometimes smacking me on the back of the head and saying, "Hey, you're better than that. This is what you should be doing. Stop hanging around, with those people." And at the time, that's what I needed, and I appreciated that.
In the time that you've been in the National Guard, how many times have you actually been deployed, like without having to be, your 2 days of the month?
I deployed in 2004. I deployed to Afghanistan as military police. So prior to leaving, we trained to be an MP, a military police, for a few weeks, and then I went overseas as an MP, and I enjoyed it. It was a different lifestyle for me. You do have that's that fear factor almost because it's the unexpected. I didn't know what to expect in another country, and it was right after 9/11. But being around, other men, being around my teammates, going through it, gave me a different perspective of life here, how spoiled we are, of how we go through in life, the benefits that we have, the freedom that we have in just living life without the fear of things happening. So that gave me a different perspective overseas. But I enjoyed the time there. Met a lot of people overseas, kids. They enjoy, soldiers over there. Helped out a lot of people there. So within a few months, you kind of get accustomed to that lifestyle, and you adapt to your environment. But I enjoyed it. It was an experience that I'm glad I went through.
How long were you deployed?
Exactly a year long, 365 days. It was
Wow.
there. So been to different areas within Afghanistan, but exactly 1 year there.
Have you ever been deployed on the state side? Like, have you ever been deployed and staying in the state?
We have the activations for like hurricanes. I've done that a lot of times. Activated where I've gone to North Florida, Jacksonville area, where I helped out in different cities up north for hurricanes, and also during that 9/11, we got activated to work at the airports when you had a lot of soldiers working there. So we did the ports, the airports, provide assistance, helping out with the baggage, guidance, directing, people to go places. So been activated at the airports, different ports, helping out as much as possible.
So you were in the National Guard during 9/11?
Yes, yeah, that was an eye opener for me. I remember I was a regular working in construction as a full-time job, and I remember hearing the radio, and when it happened, it kind of like to me, I was glad because I was able to help. I was involved. I'm like, man, this is what we wear the uniform. in times of need. And when that happened, I was ready to go. I was ready to help, do whatever I can. And that experience alone changed my life completely.
And
Well, yeah, go ahead.
so going back to like the full-time thing, you're working full-time in construction. When you get deployed and you have a full-time job, like what do you do? Like what happens to that?
For most places, yeah, that's difficult because depending on your position, if you're a manager, if you're CEO, if you own a company, it's definitely difficult. But they give you a year in advance. When we got deployed, we got a warning a year in advance, so we were able to schedule backup, people to kind of take over while we're gone. We're able to schedule different things, so it's not where you're just gone a week later, you're gone. They give you a year to prep and plan for companies because when you come back, you're obligated to maintain that job, right? So that's what's good. Even though I left, I knew when I came back, I was going to work at the same job, work at the same position. I knew I was not going to get fired. I'm protected, by law, because of the National Guard. So it gave me some sense of peace.
So the companies are required to keep your position
Correct.
for when you come in.
Yeah, correct. As long as you gotta be considerate, give them a heads up. You don't want to let them know a week prior.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, by the way, I'm in the National Guard this whole time,
So
and I'm
you-
leaving.
Oh yeah, I
So you
get
want to
that.
give them a heads up. Hey, I'm in the National Guard, and I'm leaving a year from now. We just got our orders to leave in a year, so you can give them a heads up to kind of have someone replace you while you're gone.
Do you miss being active?
Well, I'm currently active. My job right now, I'm currently active, but for the state of Florida, in the National Guard. So I was able to switch over from the National Guard 1 week in a month to active. So I'm considered active duty. So you have that option even with the National Guard, where if you do like the Guard and you want to work full time but still stay here, we have positions called active AGR, where you could work full time for the National Guard, and it's just like active duty, same benefits.
What are the main benefits that got the 17-year-old you hooked into the idea of being a National Guard?
Definitely, free college is one. Everybody, you need education to be successful. You need that degree. But to me, was the doors of opportunity that a lot of doors that opened up for me. Whether it's from networking, just how a lot of companies are very patriotic. So every job that I went to, they knew I was in the military, and I started high compared to starting from the bottom. They knew I was in the military, whether I was only there a year, 2 years, or 15 years. They already saw something different in me, and I was able to start in a management position even at a young age. So I think that's what helped out, is just the experience that you get in the military, where it opened up a lot of opportunities, gave me a lot of choices. There's some times that you're stuck with one job because you don't have no other choice. But with the National Guard, you have options now. You have a lot of doors that open up for you, a lot of opportunities to move up in careers, and I think that's what caught my attention.
When you joined, did you already know what career you wanted to do, or did you have to change while studying another career?
No, I didn't really decide. I didn't know what am I good at. I was an artist. I wanted to be an architect, and that didn't plan. Apparently you had to be smart in math. You had to know your math. I'm like, I guess I'm never going to be an architect, So I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew at least it was going to give me an opportunity of deciding what I could do, pick up a free trade. So I decided, well, maybe I could get my CDL license, join the National Guard as a truck driver, get my CDL, and convert over to work for UPS, and that's why I decided to do it.
So I was gonna ask you, how does that work? Like you said, you joined at 17. How does that work? Like I think you had to be older, like 8.
Yeah, a lot of people were they think that you have to be already graduated or be older, but the National Guard, they had this great option where it's called a split op, where even at 17 with your parent signature, you join now. I joined at my junior year, and then that summer of that junior year, I shipped to basic training. And then I split my training in half. So once I got done basic training, I came back to high school, graduated, and then I left to my job skill after I graduated high school. So I broke my training into half.
So you were wearing a uniform like already in high school.
And already in high school, yes.
Wow.
Yeah, my job was 1 week in a month. I would come to drill, do my job, I was getting paid for that weekend while I was a junior in high school.
What is like the toughest things you've had to endure as a National Army Guard?
Well, every as a 17-year-old, compared to a 23-year-old, and now I'm 47, everyone is different. So I would say at 17 is being away from my friends, right? On the weekends, I would communicate with my friends. They're at the beach, they're hanging out, and I'm away on drill weekend training, So it was tough because I wanted to be with them. I wanted to have fun. That mindset of a 17-year-old, just go out and have fun. But I was in the uniform training in the military. So kind of getting past that was tough for me. But as a, and a 23-year-old, I would think, I guess deciding what I want to do in my life by that time, like having already a career established by then, deciding am I going to make this a full-time, long-term career, or decide to get out. And then now, at 47 is, what do I do after the military? Man, I've been in the military for so long, more than half my life I've been serving in the military. What do I do? Getting out, leaving, putting my boots away.
Is there like a time limit to the National Guard? Like, if the National Guard only gets deployed in like dire, extreme circumstances, like obviously an older person might not be as apt. Like, is there can you be in the reserves for 30, 40 years, or is it like capped?
Yes, depending on when you start, but you're allowed to serve until up to your 60 years old. As long as you meet the physical demands, you're moving up in rank. You're not staying stagnant in one position forever, and you're moving up. You could stay up to your 60 years old in the military.
Do you think, would you say that, because you mentioned that when you were 17, you didn't know much of what you wanted, and you really liked that mentorship that the Army gave you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think all the like major life decisions that you've made across your whole life, do you think the Army really helped to clear your mind on what the right decision would have been?
I believe so, because I always had that in the back of my mind. The decision I made outside the military could affect me in the military. I realized whether I did or not, if I'm around a crowd of people and they got in trouble, I could be involved in that too, and it could affect me in the military. So I always had that fear factor of messing up my career in the military just by being involved in something with my friends. If they did something bad, I'm like, man, this is gonna affect me in the military. And I remember like, no, I'm all right. I'd rather not do it. No, I'm good. Whether it's friends doing drugs, doing different things, drinking if they shouldn't be drinking. I remember thinking, no, is this going to affect me in the military? If it was yes, I didn't want nothing to do with it. So it did help me because I'm thinking I didn't want anything to affect me in the military.
You talked about the process of getting in. What about the process of getting out? Like, is it like a certain time limit that you can't like get out for 4 years, or you can't get out for a certain amount of time?
I guess it depends on your contract, right? If you do your first whatever your contract is, if you do your initial contract for 6 years, then yes, you're obligated to fulfill your 6-year contract. And then once your contract is up, then you're fine. Turn in all your equipment. You sign everything over, and then you move on with your life. But in the midst of those 6 years, and you decide not to do it, then yes, it could affect you. With a negative discharge. But depending on your contract, once you fulfill that contract, then you're fine. If you want to decide to get out, you just turn in your equipment, your gear, and continue on with your life. There's some people that have done that.
And what's the minimum contract line? Like, once you do your initial contract, from my understanding, is that if you're like going to be a pilot, you have to sign a contract for, so they can get the money back that they invested
Correct.
on you.
Correct. Yes.
So once that initial one is over, what's the minimum that you can get?
Well, with the National Guard, everybody has a total of an 8-year obligation that everybody signs up for. Within those 8 years, you could either be serving either a 3-year contract or a 6-year that you're actually serving. You're wearing the uniform. And the remaining time, so if you did a 3-year contract, those 5 years remaining, you're still obligated. You don't have to show up, but in case of a need where they need you because you have a unique skill that they need to come back, then they'll call you, hey, I know you got out, but we need you to come back because you have a unique skill that we need. In those 5 years, they could call you back. If you did a 6-year contract in uniform, you're getting paid. You're an active serving member. Those remaining 2 years, you fall into that window where if they need you, they could call you to come back. But after those 8 years are done, whether they need you or not, you're clean. You can move on with your life, and that's it.
Would you say that your family supported your decision as a 17-year-old to get into the Army?
Well, at first, no. You know, my mom, you know, being, you know, who she is, she's like, no, why would you want to do this? You know, has that mom mentality, you know, watching out for me. Are you sure you want to do this? You know, why don't you try to do something else as a 17-year-old? But now, when I go back to my mom, she's talking about me all the time. She's bragging, talking to all her friends. Oh, this is my son. You know, he's in the military, right? You know, oh yeah, he's been serving forever. So now she talks about me all the time. She loves the fact that I made the decision. I am, you know, where I am now, being able to support myself and my family. So no, she loves it now. She's glad that I made that decision.
What are some of the main physical requirements that you know to get into the National Guard?
You have to at least be somewhat physically fit. You know, being able to do at least, you know, push-ups, run at least 1 mile. They have limitations, but they understand it takes time. So they work with us. We had soldiers that couldn't even do 1 push-up. You know, they couldn't even run 1 mile without throwing up. But we have a program that helps them train before they even leave the boot camp. So when you join from 1 push-up, by the time they graduated, they were able to do 20-something push-ups. They were able to run 3 or 4 miles. So they understand
what's the minimum? I know you guys have like a minimum requirement that for you to pass boot camp, you have to be able to fulfill.
Yeah, well, during boot camp in itself is based on your age as well. 17 to 20, you have a certain bracket. So there's brackets within your age group. They understand as you get older, your body's not the same.
So so the 17 to 20-year-olds have it rough, like
they're able to do more because what they could withstand compared to someone who's older. But at least, you know, prior to boot camp, before they even leave the boot camp, we always have our own minimum standard, you know, to see how much work do you need to do that. You know, there's some people that never ran before in their life, never done any physical fitness, and even those, by the time they graduate, they complete it. It's just we kind of get you, it's more of a mental aspect than physical. We always tell everybody, if you're mentally prepared and you mentally want to do it, you'll get through it. We have people that we lift weights all the time, could do 100 push-ups, but mentally they're weak, and they're the ones that drop out. It's usually the mental ones that make it.
Is there any like age limit to the age that you can join? Like say somebody's 45 and they want to join. Is it still okay if they're physically fit?
We have a lot. As a recruiter, I get a lot of phone calls calling me. Office visits, you see them, they're in shape, and they're like, oh, I'm 50 years old, you know. But unfortunately, we do have a cutoff. You know, our normal age limit is from 17 to 34 years old. And after that, we do have something with age waiver. It's like a waiver we submit. Say, hey, can you have an exception to policy I have a 37-year-old, they have a bachelor's degree, a master's, they're certified in XYZ, and then we submit a waiver in to see, and most of the time it gets granted, it gets approved. We've had just maybe a month ago, a female, 42-year-old, 43, I think 42, she joined the military. So there are some times where we have someone that passes that age limit but have a lot to offer, in shape, pass the medical, and those get approved as well for the National Guard.
Can you explain the different rankings in the National Guard and what it takes to get there?
Well, you have two paths in the military. You have your enlisted side, you know, where you start off as a private and move your way up to a sergeant, you know, all the way up to a command sergeant major. They show more of, you know, command presence as far as leadership, leading soldiers. And then you have your officers, right? The officers, you know, they have a different route. They're more behind the scenes, you know, they're the ones that create the policies. They're the ones responsible for the overall mission, to making sure it gets accomplished and everything. So you have two different routes in the military. You have your enlisted and then you have your officer. As far as enlisted, it's like time in service. For the most part, you know, the more time you spend in, and then once you become a sergeant, then as far as education schools, leadership schools that you take, you know, every branch, every rank as a leader, as an NCO, as a sergeant, you have a school that you have to pass, and then you're able to move up to the next rank. As far as, and then officers, it's just time different training, and the officer route, you'll go away to learn different skills, as far as how to lead battalions, how to manage, soldiers, how to manage equipment, and two different routes, two different, and same thing like you mentioned about the officers. If you become an officer, for all that training, you have a 6-year commitment, when you become an officer to stay in the military, try to get that time back and stuff.
Now, going back to officer, what is the difference in enlistment on an officer and enlisted? Can an enlisted ever become an officer?
Yes, we've had that a lot. We have, enlisted that start off, maybe they just start off to get in and then they didn't know about the officer route. We have a program called OCS, Officer Candidate School, where if you are enlisted, it's right here in the state of Florida. You attend one week in a month in Jacksonville area. And for 18 months, you go there 1 week in a month and you commission as a second lieutenant. And that's how you're able to convert over to officer. We've had some people start off enlisted as a sergeant and then eventually end their career as an officer. So you do have that. I've never seen anyone start off officer and then go enlisted, but definitely enlisted and eventually go officer in the military.
What would you say is the higher ranking, in your opinion, the officer or the enlisted?
Right, they're a parallel throughout the past. It's overall, officers are always in charge overall, but they delegate, similar to what you had mentioned earlier. They'll delegate, a task to the sergeant, whoever it is in charge. And then if you guys were my soldiers, right, the officer will give me a mission, delegate the job to me, and then now I will talk to you guys, hey, we got a mission, this is what we got to do, and I will delegate to you guys. You guys are under me as enlisted, and then we follow up to the officer. So it's definitely a chain of command. You have your officers, and then you have enlisted. But for the most part, we're always work equal. But at the end of the day, we always follow up with the officers, making sure they're the ones that making sure everything works out, everything is good. Because if anything goes bad, they're the ones usually like, hey, you're the ones in charge. You're the ones that are going to get in trouble. So we do work together, but at the same time, we always fall under the officers as far as enlisted.
So let's talk about like some of the benefits that you get, like being in why would someone join the military? Is there any difference in benefits, let's say, between a reservist and an active duty?
Active duty and reservist. When it comes to benefits, I always say, I was like, well, to me, a benefit is something where it's going to benefit me. Let's say, for an example, a free college. If I come in and join the military and I already have a degree, free college is not necessarily a benefit if I already have a degree. But if I don't and I'm seeking it, yes, it could be a benefit for me. So I think when it comes to the military, depending on what each person wants in life, is going to be a benefit for them. So I could say, yeah, it was a benefit for me, and it might not be a benefit for you. So I guess, for me, a benefit was the option later on in the future to pursue my education compared to at 17 years old. I wasn't thinking about going to college. I wasn't thinking about attending college or even qualified to go. But I knew eventually when I was ready to go, it was always there. That benefit was always there for me later on. So I like that. I like the benefit as far as, the retirement, serving for 20 years and be able to collect a retirement, later on in my life. The benefits as far as, disability, VA, meeting different people. And the benefit as a 17-year-old is going to be different compared to if it's a 20-year, 30-year-old. It's going to be different. So it's hard to kind of explain benefits because depending on where you are in your life, it's going to be different.
Have you ever, go ahead.
For you personally, what did your path look like? Did you sign up and then go straight into college? Like when you had the opportunity, did you wait a couple years?
Yeah, definitely. I waited a few years. I didn't take, unless my last 2 years of high school, I didn't really take high school serious. It was just a day for me to wake up and go to school. But as I grew up, my son was born. I realized, okay, education is important, and I was able to start attending college afterwards. But it was a few years after I was already in the National Guard, and so I started kind of getting my life right. I had a different mentality. At a young age, as a 17-year-old, I was more about getting money, helping my family. I grew up with just my mom, single mom, 5 kids. So my mom took care of us. So I was thinking, after high school, I just want to work, get my own car, make some money, buy clothes, hang out. So it was more of a money aspect for me. I wasn't really thinking about college until later on, after I kind of grew up, had my first son, and it kind of hit me as far as, okay, I got to start getting an education.
Wrap this up. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything.